name is Patricia, and last name is Van Esch. And I always, thought it was a long name for a website and a long name for people to kind of remember. But I started signing my artwork as PVE, and I just sort of, I guess it took off, and so people started to call me PVE. And so I sign it at the bottom. I have this one that I wanted to share, if you can see. And I
Oh,
created
yes.
one for Ingrid at Body and Mind Pilates
Oh,
training, and I've been
yes.
working with her privately for over a year now. And she is certified through the Art of Control, so she's classically trained
Yes.
authentic Pilates. So it's added another component to my level of teaching and my level of understanding my own body. And
Hmm.
just some of the breakthroughs that I feel that I've had. And one of my clients said, "What I love is that you're always constantly learning. You're a student." And
Yes.
so anyway, this back to this card that I created for Ingrid. She
Mhm.
was connected. It was through Black Girl Pilates, and
Okay.
Pilates gave her. It's called Grown Woman Dance Collective.
Okay.
So
Nice.
she's starting this. She's away right now, but she's starting this as a way to educate. The goal is to bring education to women through principles of art and wellness, and also life skills. So maybe some of the community that it's going towards, there could be a little financial instability, and
Hmm.
it's a good way to bring the community, empower the community. So she's already been working with some students in her studio that never knew what Pilates was, even though they're dancers. And
Okay.
she's an amazing teacher. So that's so my art. I started. I went to University of Cincinnati a million years ago, and I
For
started.
art.
I started out in art education, uh,
Okay.
College of Design, Architecture, and Art. Princess Diana was getting married. We watched it at like 3 a.m. We all met at the school because there was no live streaming or anywhere. We had to meet at the school and the TV and all this. It was
Nice.
very memorable time. And so I graduated in fashion. I moved over to fashion because I met this guy that was in my art history class. And
Okay.
we found out we were in English literature class too. So funny story, clogs, right? They're back in again,
Yes.
the shoes. So he's sitting across from me, and he knocks my clog off. And I was so mortified. I was so embarrassed. And the teacher's name was Virgil Nimoyana, and he was Yugoslavian. And he looked at me and my maiden name, and he goes, "Is there a problem?" And but anyway, I had a lot of fun with the people. So then I moved to fashion,
Okay.
and I always loved fashion. I was grew up one of seven, and my mom did not want us to ever be bored. So we always had to be like working on a project, making something, um,
Keeping you busy.
keeping us busy. So I'm thankful for her and my father that really instilled, I think, a hard work ethic, um,
Hmm.
and also um, just when I look back, like I know how to make a pie crust and all these things that my mom could make a dinner, like open up a cabinet, and I'd be like, how'd she do that? She could stretch
Right.
taller, and so I learned
Yes.
a lot from that. But then I came to New York for my co-op program. It was a 5-year program, and I had danced as a girl, and I did ballet, I did hip hop, jazz. I mean, it was well, not that hip hop was really back then, but we did modern dance.
Okay.
And then I got to see Martha Graham dance. I took a workshop, and Alvin Ailey lifted my leg, and he said, "You're not holding it from your core, you're holding it
Yes.
from your quad." And
Okay.
like, I'm never going to wash leg again. But then, 1970s. And so I think I've always, I kind of got away from the movement piece of it. I mean, it was always there personally. And then
Yes.
in 2017, well, I spent 15 years in fashion.
Okay.
So I worked for Ralph Lauren,
Hmm.
and I worked for Calvin Klein and Liz Claiborne, and got to, meet all of them. And it was an exciting
Wow.
time. Got to go to Studio 54. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. So
Yeah.
saw Warhol, just kind of tells you a little bit about. So then
Background. Yeah.
I had my twins, and they are 29, and we ended up, staying in the city with my in-laws, saying, you need a house and you need a yard and you need, and we were like, well, it was kind of the eye-opening moment when I walked across the street with two big wheels. Do you remember those?
I do. Yeah.
And I was like, how am I going to do this? We didn't live near Central Park. And then, you start to bring in all these things, and the apartment all of a sudden feels small.
Small. Yeah.
And it's, New York, the cost of living is high and it's gotten even more so. And so anyway, we found this house that we are in, and it's been 26 years. We
Okay.
moved for 3. And so I continued to do my work. I worked 5 years commuting back and forth. And then I kind of I wrote in my journal one day about like manifesting what I wanted. And then I said to my husband, and he goes, well, if that's what you want, just do it. And I was like, yeah, okay. So it was, I started anything that, I just started saying yes to anything.
Interesting.
Painting faces at the church fair, cutting silhouettes, doing things, painting murals on ceilings,
Yeah.
doing faux finishing. So I got kind of, got away from fashion, but I had one client, and I did work for them up until about 2018. And they had 2 stores at the time. And the owner said, I really like your style of drawing. Why don't you sketch the store for me? So they had 2 stores, like I said, and now they have over 100 stores. And so
Wow.
it was, a great experience, great relationship, and still, speak to them and everything. But in 2018, well, 2017, I went to a club Pilates, and I was like, oh, this is nice. I got on the reformer, and
Yes.
my daughter was a senior, and there was a lot of anxiety, the whole college process, the applications, and it became the person who taught me the intro. I just signed up right away. I was like, okay, I'm paying, I'm coming, I'm doing.
Hmm. Yes.
So I was there a lot. And it was kind of like got on that reformer. I didn't have
Love it.
my mind. It wasn't like yoga where my mind would wander and I'd think about my grocery list. And it just, I don't know. For me, it was something about the movement of the reformer, and really finding, I don't know. So then the teacher that taught the class, she still teaches. She's a dynamo. She teaches, and she would sometimes come to my 6 a.m. And my master trainer came to my 6 a.m. on Instagram Live, and he goes, I'm going to make a correction. And I was like, but you know what? I think that's the, when you're doing it, we learn by doing. We learn by our mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
if we're ready to embrace them, for sure.
yeah. So then she said, you should think about teaching. And I was like, I was like turning around, like, who's she talking to? And
Hmm.
I'm like, okay. And I came home and I told my husband, and it was, it was like $5,000 or $4,500. And he's like, well, how are you going to make this money back? And, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And so I did it, and they didn't have enough people signed up. And I was like, that's
Okay.
fine. You got my money. I know, there's going to be a class of people. So, I started in October. My daughter went to school, and I started going through teacher training. And it was like every weekend. And, we started on the mat, then the reformer. We did all the, ladder barrel, all the apparatus.
Love
And
it.
when I got to the Cadillac, I was like so scared. I was glazing over. And when the master trainer, Michael, would hop up on and he'd just, hang it upside down. And I was like, oh, I'm never going to be able to teach somebody to do that. That's
Mm,
just, and then he's like, it's okay because you're not going to be teaching that to start with anyway. Okay.
right.
So, I don't know if I have it here. I I went to Rite Aid and I got one of those Mead 3x5 note cards,
Yes.
and it came with a little D ring. And so, because our program, they didn't have any books yet. It was all online, and they hadn't published, the books. And
Yes.
so it was, I took notes and I was drawing my drawings of the Pilates move to help me to figure it out. And then
As
the,
an artist.
yeah, as an artist. And
Yes.
so backtracking, I was going to say, so this little Mead book, I started to, because I knew I had to do the 500 hours, which seemed
Mm,
daunting, right?
yes.
And it's like not everybody finishes college, right? Some people take the
Right.
4 6 year, whatever.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to fast track it, and I wanted to teach. Like I just wanted to teach. Like when we started doing the teach backs in class, I was like, so we were all nervous,
Always. Yes.
and so not everybody finished in my class. Not everybody became a teacher. And so then there was like a series of events. One teacher had a car accident, another teacher, and the owner was like, can you do footwork? Can you sub? Oh, you're at the studio, you're doing your private, practice. Great, because this one's late. So I just started to, again, I said yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes. And then I would get the teachers to sign off on, it was before I started doing the teaching. And, I taught footwork, and then I would teach bridging, and then, the teacher would come in and out, and then she would,
Love it.
either some teachers would send emails with, like, there was one teacher that I had that she was an awesome teacher. And when it came time for the review, she gave it, and it was like a 9.9 out of 10. And I did not think at all that, because in the beginning,
Yes.
using like the magic circle, the fit ball, you know, it was just
Yes.
in the end, it's like, you know what? I'm going to simplify. So,
Absolutely. I love the comments here too, Patricia. Patricia, Better Breathing saying, did everyone start out with stickman note taking? Yes, that would be me.
yeah,
I'm sure you had like full diagram, muscle fibers and striations and your perfect artwork, right?
yeah, well, it wasn't even so much about that. It was to remember, because it just seemed all overwhelming to me.
Yes.
And then also, so in December, I invited everybody to come for dinner to have a celebration. And, and I remember feeling so sore and so exhausted, but also that high.
Elated and exhausted all at the same time.
Yeah. When I go to a workshop now, I still feel that same, like, oh, invigoration.
Hmm.
I did a advanced standing mat class with Ingrid and a few other people at Art of Control. I'm probably going to say her name wrong. Dorothy Vanderwall taught it.
Okay.
She's
Yes.
on the West Coast. And I was like, holy man. But it was great. And then we did a prenatal clinic and Cadillac. And
Oh, nice.
and it's just great to connect with people. People were from Boston and from here, and you know, so that was great. 2018, I start
Yes.
teaching, and I'm at the studio. I'm in a private, and I usually don't have my phone on. And I got to the car, and my husband calls me, and he had this come around once before. My sons were in middle school, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I got offered a position in Paris, and my heart sunk because I'm like,
Mm.
what about Pilates? And what, like I just worked so
Yeah.
hard to get here. So,
Hmm.
um, so it was like back and forth. I had to go over for a month of September of 2018, find an
Okay.
apartment. That was one apartment that didn't have an oven, and the broker was like, "Oh, sandwich," you know. And so we found a great apartment, and I had I known, right, COVID was coming, I would have gone more.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have gone more. Not that I
Yes.
regret, but I was going back and forth. And then I found Pilates teachers in Paris.
Yeah, of
And
course.
and
Nice.
and that was great because Paris is somewhat of a, I would say, it's a city, it's an old city. You have uneven cobblestones and you do a lot of walking, but the air quality is it's heavy.
Yes.
And so I found somebody, and that just was like, oh, yeah, that was Alice Pilates. She
Alice.
I'll send you her.
You know, yeah, I'm totally gonna look all these people up too,
Yeah.
Patricia.
And Alice told me at like the last session that I had with her that she was pregnant.
Mm.
Now she has two children, and she teaches in France. So the first time I took a couple of times I took, my French is not, anywhere near what my husband's. And even my husband grew up in France, in the south of France, and got to go to the Grand Prix, and which I know you
Nice.
love cars.
Yep.
But she would say inspire, which means inhale,
Mm.
inspire,
Yes.
and exhale is, expire, expire. So it's
Yes.
very interesting that then I really realized that the breath is helps me to articulate the cues.
Yes. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, just like the breath, and like I was gonna ask you, what did you notice as the differences in terms of points of emphasis, Pilates in the U.S. versus Pilates in Paris? And I guess that would be it. Like like the environment and the culture dictates what the people need, and if everyone sees that, then the teachers are gonna have a very similar flow to what they're teaching.
Yeah. Well, in Europe, the Pilates studios are all, small. They don't teach a class. It's mostly private, right? If
Okay.
it's a class, it's a mat. And I believe it was Romana that put into effect to protect that. This is
Mm.
what the teacher that I had told me.
Okay.
Um, my husband, anyway, my husband had a fall at our son's rehearsal dinner. He got married in 2019, and he tore his quad tendon 80%.
That's not
So
fun.
he has a high pain threshold, but he had the surgery done in Europe, in France. And so he was working at the time, he was going to a gyrotonics. And, and then so
Yes.
he was going back, and I did some of that too. Very different than Pilates.
Mhm.
But the studios are small. And when I would say I teach 12 people on the chair, how do you do that? And yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. The so in terms of your art, now Patricia, were you teaching art or fashion? Like, was there a time when you were teaching when you're in that modality, or was Pilates the first time that you were teaching in one of your past professions?
No. So, well, as a young girl, I taught in my house. I had students come to my house, and my
Hmm.
dad was like, whatever you earn, I'm going to match it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had students come to my house, bring them down to the basement. I had a handicapped child, and his mother was like, he's the first person that he's trusted, you know? We went to
Yes.
the zoo, we go outside. I know I have pictures somewhere, but yeah. So that's kind of why I went into education. And my aunt was a teacher. She was a math teacher. She was a nun before.
Okay.
And then she moved to Bahrain. And
Wow.
she was an incredible, very smart lady. My
Hmm.
father was one of nine. I'm one of seven.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I love what you were saying earlier about how you felt when you first did Pilates. And that's one of the things I find I center on a lot is when people are sharing their story of how they found Pilates or how Pilates found them.
Hmm.
And you're saying that that breath of fresh air, that sense of like, this is what I need. I'm signing up right away. Like, I don't have to feel this out for two more trials before I make a decision because this is life giving to me.
Hmm.
I, I find that, and tell me if this is the same for you, but that first feeling, that first experience of Pilates that you have is the very feeling that you want to try and create for the next person who comes in for their first time doing Pilates.
Hmm. Hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I have an 89-year-old gentleman who met Joseph Pilates, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, and he comes to me twice a week. And I tell you, it is beautiful to watch him move. And
that's crazy. Did Joseph Pilates teach him? I'm sorry to cut you off there. I
uh,
was just like,
we have pictures at the studio, and he goes, and he looked just like that.
yeah,
He looked just like that. Yes, he taught him. So, and he's very
fascinating.
fair, and I can see when he comes, he closes his eyes, and he's moving. He can't wait to move,
Yes,
and that's so beautiful.
yes. Well, say some more about that. Because I mean, like we can get, I can get very finicky about setting up an exercise and making sure certain muscles activate. And some people need that stuff. And then other people come in and they're like, okay, what's next? And they're like, don't give me any setup, just like what's next? Let's just go.
Yeah, I had a first time client. She works with another teacher, and she was away, and she came back, and she was like, I don't want to do that. This is too light. And I'd be like, okay, I really appreciate the feedback. So I think feedback is, tell me if it's too much. I'm going to tell
Hmm.
you what we're going to do next, right?
Yes.
Educating them.
Yes.
Um, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone is different on that way, and just like also recognizing what the person needs. And sometimes it is a bit of a tug of war, right? Where a person's like, that's too much. And we're like, well, you don't know what we're doing yet. So trust me for a moment with these lighter springs because we're going to go there, or like we're going to have a different point of emphasis. So sometimes there's that dialogue, right? Like, well, every time there's that dialogue with our clients, but I was just, yeah, it's just
Well,
interesting how people can be like
you
that.
know, imagine if you ate the same food.
Yes.
And my son, shout out my son who's in Germany. He's in the army, coming home this weekend to Texas.
Mm,
Lives. He and his wife have been apart for 9 months. So I'm so proud of them. But talking about the MREs or the RE, what do they call them? The ready to eat meals. I'm
yes.
eating that day after day. And he went
Mm,
through Ranger School, and it's like 2 o'clock, and they wake him up, eat now, like a dog, and they put their
yes.
85-pound rucksack. So the same thing with the client. If I went in every day and I made them do the same thing, same thing, same thing,
Hmm.
and I kind of did that with one client as a test. She said, I'm ready for more.
Yes.
And it's the same thing, raising, let's say, a toddler, and me do it. There's that sense of like confidence. Even if you
Yes.
want to help them, it's
Hmm.
re- it's really not about us doing the work for them. It's about them finding the work.
Yes.
Hmm.
Agreed. And there's how can I put this? Like that example you just used, there's a foundation that's laid that builds the confidence for them to demand more.
Yes. And I think, oftentimes, like, it's building trust. It's
Yes.
working with another, oh, well, she does it differently. Or, and I'm like, please educate me.
Hmm.
Help me
Yes.
to do what are the differences?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they'll start out day one, well, she just knew my body. And I'm like, well, I'm going to get
I
to know,
know.
you know?
Yeah. How that's not so that's not a fair statement. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, that happens. Well, I just started a new class at a new gym, and I went out and scouted out the classes that are on the schedule. And there's like 2 or 3 classes, and they're all one style of Pilates. And I know that's different than what I teach. So I
Hmm.
took one class from that class, and there's a lot of props and a lot of cues, and the person teaches primarily yoga and has Pilates as well, as opposed to someone who has immersed themselves in Pilates. So she's a good teacher, but it's a yoga person teaching Pilates as opposed to a Pilates person, or me as a personal trainer teaching Pilates, and then you immerse yourself and then become a Pilates person. So you see the emphasis. So I know that going into my class, and I had 23 people in this brand new class,
Hmm.
and everyone was quiet, and everyone's kind of shy, and everyone's kind of feeling me out, and I'm feeling them out. We did the whole class, and I don't know if they liked it. I don't know if it was good. I
Hmm.
don't know if it was just different and they hated it, or if it was like fantastic and the best thing they ever did. It was like, thank you, that was nice. Thank you, that was very good. Thank you, good
And
class.
that make you feel?
Um, it didn't phase me. Like I felt like I got them moving. They were able to follow my verbal cues. They were able to follow my visual cues. Everyone was like, I think if I'm doing a good class, if I can give you a verbal cue when I'm standing in one spot and you can do the whole exercise and everyone in the room is doing the same thing, then I'm like, okay, that was a good class because no one was lost. Everyone was able to follow the verbal cue. The
Hmm.
visual cue is easy. The verbal cue is the one that takes some work. So from that perspective of presenting a technically good class, I think it was a good class. Did
That's
they like it? That's what we don't
good.
know.
It's interesting. I was subbing for a teacher last week, and it was a jump board cardio class.
Okay.
And I got there. There was an accident on the way, and I was running. I got there at like 8:59, and the class started at 9, and
Yes.
maybe a little bit. So we were some of the jump boards to get them situated, and then I started, and then two people walked in. They didn't have socks. They were
Mm.
first time. They were husband and wife, and they were Indian, so she was translating to him, and I was like, oh man, my energy was like very, like not,
Distracted.
yeah. And
Yes.
one of my private clients took the class, and she said to me this week, she goes, I gotta hand it to you. That was amazing the way you worked the room. But
Mm.
I said, well, you know what? We get distracted all the time, right? So
Yes.
way it was like, okay, God, you're challenging me to focus. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember I subbed, I had a last minute sub last Thursday. And I know one of the women coming in, and I'm like, oof, okay. And she was like, oh, I don't like music, and it's too hot, and it's too. And I'm like, we're going to make everybody happy. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, not that that's our job or for our job but I, I had an amazing boss. Shout out to Cheryl at Equinox.
Yeah.
And I mean, she scared me, legit scared me. Like I would write on my hand, she would quiz me. Did you
Yeah.
raise my hand? Don't cheat. And she would, in her class, she would slow it down and make you hold it and come up another inch and a quarter of an inch. And you were like, sometimes we don't have to go through the paces. Just
Yes.
hold it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And where are you pulling from? Are you using your core? You know?
Right.
And then
Yes.
taught
That's
a class,
sorry.
she taught a mat class at Athleta
Okay.
and invited a couple private clients to come. And they were like, man, no joke. She's no joke. And I think people, I don't know, I don't think people necessarily want to get beat up,
Mm-hmm.
but they want to feel it.
They do. And in the personal training world, we talk about that a lot too, where there's so many variables that you can change for someone to feel the challenge of the work. You don't
Mhm.
necessarily have to just make the weight heavier on the gym floor for them to be challenged. Stand on one foot, close your eyes, have different weights in different hands, like hold it longer, time and attention. And it's the same thing in the Pilates world. We can use so many different variables besides just loading more springs
Right.
and get the nervous system fired up and to get people thinking about a different point of emphasis in a movement and do so much work with it. Quick question for those of you in the crowd. How many of you, by show of hands, have taught a class and thought you bombed it, only to find out that it actually was a really good class? Right. Yeah. So I mean, those are all the things, right? I think that that's how what we're saying about just trusting ourselves, and just having that confidence and having that sense of, okay, I know what I know. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to challenge you where you're at,
Mhm.
and we're just going to go with it, right? So if that doesn't turn out how it does, how you thought in your head, when someone shows up late and they don't have the right equipment and they need time for setup, and then there's a language barrier, and then you still pull it off, and it's not what you had in mind, but you're still able to get people moving and sweating and happy and freer, and they walk out with a spring in their step,
Mhm.
that's a good day.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about pain?
Yes,
Mhm.
let's do that.
So pain. Um, I, because everybody has some sort of pain, and
Mm-hmm.
especially in this sort of demographic of the Pilates community, it's a safe place. The resistance is great at gaining strength, but for some people, it's trying to identify with their pain and work around it, or ways to like release the pain, which brings
Yes.
me to I I have I've been diagnosed with osteoarthritis in my right hip,
Okay.
and I got a shot, and I don't really want to do this going, I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I found this gentleman on Instagram, Chris Corrales, in San Francisco, and
Okay.
wow, he spoke to me. He spoke to me about the pain, and we did a free just last week, and I really appreciated his time. And he was explaining what he does called structural integration.
Yes.
And so I found a session because he was like, well, you can come to San Francisco and work with me. And I'm like, well, I'm in New York.
It's
So I
a
found,
long drive. Yeah.
yeah, so I found a woman in New York City, and I went this week, and in my first session,
Okay.
oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I explained, my symptoms, and I don't want this pain, and I don't want this, I don't want this, name tag on me. And
Mm-hmm.
want to, I want to address it in a more holistic way. And,
Yes.
Pilates, I can do everything. You would never know. Um, but then sometimes just a simple walk or sitting too much, or, you know,
Flares it up.
so I went to her, Laura, at Kinetic Structural Integration in the city, and I had never been touched like that before. And it was all about the breath, and really, I mean, she put her hands underneath my rib cage.
Yes.
And when I left, I said to her, I was like, I'm never going to go do a regular massage again. Like, this is amazing.
So was it closer to like a Thai massage almost, where it's just like working breath and working range of motion type thing? Like where
So
like
it's a system, structural integration, invented by Ida Rolf. So it's Rolfing.
Rolfing. Gotcha. Oh, okay. I heard that term before. Yeah, okay.
So it's 10 sessions, and
Mm-hmm.
each session addresses the out of the body, the inside of the body, and it was crazy. I felt very vivid memory came back to me when I was in kindergarten. Did you ever have Charlie chips, potato chips?
No.
Oh my gosh. Well, they come in a can, and that was
Okay.
like the only kind of like store-bought snack. And it was delivered to the house that my parents, and when it was gone, it was gone. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, it's gone. You opened up that can, and it was that smell of salt. And I mean, I don't know, potato chips, you can't just have one.
Right. Yeah.
So in kindergarten, we had that Charlie chip can. It didn't have chips. It had red bowls of clay.
Okay.
And we would get the clay, and it was so hard, Martin. It was like concrete. We had to massage this clay, which, you know, really helps you relax. And then
Right.
by the time it was soft, it was time to put it back in the thing. And so I said to Laura, I was like, I am that red ball of clay, and you are just working.
Needing it.
And it was crazy. And she went around the pectoralis major, and I'm
Hmm.
like, what was that? And she goes, that was pectoralis major and or minor. And she goes, she takes no prisoners. Like, you know, she's just gonna do it.
Tears, eh? Yeah.
So the next session is, I think, feet. I mean, we do footwork
Yeah.
bodies, but I'm telling you, and I also have a bunion on my right foot, and it's not pretty, but I don't want to do anything about it because I don't know if it's going to cure it. And so
Right.
she's like, this can help you a lot. So she was massaging she would flex my foot and push and then point, and yeah, I was like in heaven.
Wow.
So I'm
Anyone in the chat have done rolfing before or have experienced that? Just a show of hands if you have and what your experience has been. Because another person on here was talking about that, and actually one of my colleagues, one of my clients,
mhm.
found someone locally and went and did it because he's really into like understanding like everything from Reiki down through every kind of osteopath and everything. So he went and found someone. So I'm still curious to try it. I never tried it, but I'm just
And
curious
you
who out
really,
there has.
so it's really MFR. It's the myofascial release. It's working with the
Yes.
fascia, and you know, one side of the body can be, and she I had to stand up against a wall, and she was looking at me, you know, she
Hmm.
goes, okay, turn to the back and turn to the side. And I looked at her, I'm like, number 7, guilty, you know, like I felt like I was in a lineup.
Yeah, totally.
And, you know, and she said at the beginning, there's a lot of tension in your feet. And, you know, after the session, I could feel this just like relief, and it was creating space. So she
Yes.
described Jenga block, you know, and you
Yes.
want everything to be aligned. And sometimes that pattern of the way we move causes it to go out of alignment, just like our,
Yes.
so it's,
So, Patricia, sorry,
mhm.
go ahead. No, finish your thought, sorry.
So it's 10 sessions. And then, you know, after you finish the 10, maybe you come back once a year or however many times you want to go. But I've
Mm.
been looking at videos of Ida Rolf, and she was in the 60s, 50s, 60s, times 70s. And she's just really interesting to listen to.
Yes. Is that your next training certification, perhaps?
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah, it
think,
sounds like it.
yeah. It's really cool. And I said, what did you use on your hands? Just water, just water. So, you know, because and it's pressing, like it's, you know, here lifting the arm, and it's like lengthening up.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
mean, some of it was like, she's like, if it's too intense, she would explain everything before, just like we
Yes.
explain clients.
Right.
And some people, and she was like, I really liked working with you because you just allowed me to get in there.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's the thing too, right? I mean, one, being a mover, you get it. And two, like you're probably strong enough you can handle these things and understand what the purpose is. Like a lot of times, people come into our studio and they never played a sport in their life. They never really exercised until their doctor said that they need to start exercising, whatever. So they don't have that same kind of push and that same sense of I'm comfortable being uncomfortable for the purpose of getting to a freedom of movement mindset that you probably walked in with. So she's just like,
yeah,
let's go, right?
you know, I mean, but that said, I love a good challenge, and I don't think
Mhm.
that she's only taking clients that are a certain. I'm sure
No, no.
she works with a lot of trapeze artists, aerial artists, and
Right.
'cause, you know, there's
Okay.
injury, and there's, you know, they're going to hold the energy in one place. So the guy Chris on the West Coast, he was explaining it to me because I didn't know what it was a week ago,
Mm,
and he said,
right.
you get in your car and you got the backup camera, and you turn the corner, and the car goes ding ding ding, and you're like, you know, am I going to hit something? And he said pain is like that in your body, right? So when you feel that pain, it's like ding ding ding, and you don't want that. and you're like, how
Right.
can I push it away? And
Right.
so starting to look at the patterns of how you're moving, and then it opens
Yes.
up different neurons, and it's
Hmm.
all mind body, right?
Absolutely. That sort of thing does fascinate me, and I've used different analogies to try and help my clients understand that neural pathway piece. And so yeah, I'm gonna look into that as well because it sounds like it's a light bulb went off for you.
Yeah.
Did you try it on your husband after? It was like, okay, and then we did this. You try and replicate some of those moves and see how, if you can actually make it work yet.
I'm working on that, Martin, because I could talk Pilates all day long, and I get, why do you talk about Pilates all the time? So
Right. You
I'm
gotta ease it into the conversation a bit.
yeah, and he's very, uh, he's the provider. He's a, you know, and so it's harder for him to like, you know, to see that emotional piece, right?
Yeah, we're warm, fuzzy people, right? Like it's nice. Let's
Well,
run
like
along.
if I said to him, I did a handstand today, he'd be like, what? You know, like it doesn't have the same. Now, if I talked about skiing, that'd be different.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. That's his language.
He raced and our kids did ski racing and, getting up at 5 in the morning and getting in the car, and it's good for you, you know, he has
Hmm.
that it's good for you kind
Right,
of delivery.
right. So will he do Pilates since it's good for him and make him a better skier?
So he has, during the COVID, he was working from home. So he's like this.
Right.
And so he went to a physical therapist because I got some pain in my neck, and I'm like, you got to put your head back, and you got to come and do Pilates, and I, you know, I can't lead a horse to drink water. When he's ready,
He's ready for it.
yeah,
When the student is ready, the teacher appears, they say. So,
yeah.
yeah, too funny. So, how are you going to do your teacher training course? How does this weave into your work? Like, where do we go from here, Patricia, with everything you learned this week and everything you've been doing and marrying into it your art and everything? How does all this art and Pilates tie together?
I think, like, I will say this, and it's not going to be easy for me to say it, but people look at my art and they'll be like, it's so happy, it's so fun, it's so whimsical, and I want to say to them, you don't know how many pieces of paper I ripped up and how long it took me to
Mm,
dress, and the night sometimes, like, that I would stay up, and then I'll look at it and I'll hate it. It's not like I'm drawing, I'm doing a still life and looking at it for what it is, or I'm trying to create. So for me, I think I have to allow myself to be more vulnerable.
yeah,
And I think with this Rolfing, I definitely feel it's opening up some things for me.
yes.
And so and I looked at her when I finished, and I'm like, this is what I want. I want what you have. Like, and she goes, yeah, there's something to be said for being your own boss. And
Yes.
so I'm not there yet, you
Mm,
know, but I
yeah.
think that's the next piece. I mean, I don't want to say age, but I mean, like I said to Chris last week, I'm like, I feel 38, but I'm 62. And when I had this pain in my hip and I got the shot, I felt like I was 80. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this doesn't, this does not connect. I'm a Pilates
Yeah.
teacher. I'm supposed to be, you know?
Yes.
So I
It's
think,
tough. Yeah.
again, that pain is allowing me to, I'd like to go more abstract and maybe bigger pieces and not be so literal.
Yeah.
Like, there's a place, when you're teaching, that you go, that's like
Yes.
lose everything.
Hmm.
And I've had it, like, I've had teachers that I've done privates with them, and they'll be like, I could work with you all day, right?
Yes. Yes.
feel that, like, and
Mhm.
you know, and then I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, are they done with me yet? Like, this is going, but no, it's that push pull. But
Yes.
again, I will address that pain piece of it, and
Yeah.
just allowing myself, you know, and I think
Yeah. Well, it's a journey, right? Like I can hear it's if you really embrace your journey, you're going to a great place, right? So if it's like you're learning this role thing and you're learning from these teachers and you're learning the business of it behind this while you're learning what's happening in your body and
Mhm.
you're journaling this whole process and you're saying yes to the next opportunity, like you're on a fantastic path
Yeah,
if
thank you.
you just don't overthink it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what COVID taught us all, is that
Yes, absolutely.
there are other possibilities, right? I mean,
Hmm.
my son kept saying, and he's very fit. My both of my they're twins, um, and you need to get dad a Peloton. You know, you need to get dad a Peloton, and you know, there's a possibility of that, or I mean, it's not just all happening at the gym anymore.
True. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's exciting.
So we'll see.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I love following people's journeys. Like you have these conversations, and does it seem a little bit more clear after just like saying it out loud like that?
Yeah. And 2 years, well, it was during the pandemic. Another Pilates teacher, daughter, was doing these online meditations. And so
Okay,
I signed up. Her name is Allison Medolo. And she was
okay,
like back at home and trying to figure out what she was going to do. And she's young. She went to Tulane. And so I did the online, I did it with her dad. It was on Zoom, and her aunt. And, you know,
yeah,
I got so much out of it, and I've been in touch with her, and she gave me the cure for chronic pain.com,
okay,
and they do this journal speak. So she's doing yoga, and I did. Uh, so afterwards, I was like, Allison, you got to charge more money. You're amazing, and
hmm,
I can see your passion for this. So I did a session with her of like, you know, I don't want to grind anymore. You know, in the
yeah,
beginning, yes, I'll teach every day, and I'll come at 6 and I'll finish. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that.
right,
So she helped me to, like, I'm doing 3 days a week. Sometimes I
hmm,
can add on, or, you know,
yeah,
I mean, 3, 4, 5 hours at a clip, you know, and it's fine.
sure,
If the client wants to come at another time, I'll meet you there.
yes, yeah. The do you have you followed Leslie Logan at all with her agency and her agency mini and all those things?
Yeah. Yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing. And I was like always watching her videos all the time, and
Yeah,
just see her evolution. I
yeah,
also I did also during quarantine a meditation with I'm gonna forget her name. She was on Pilatesology, and it'll come to me. She's amazing. She teaches on the West
you
Coast. I'll
yeah,
think,
send it to me after. Yeah, if you remember after, send it to me after.
yeah. And
But yeah, so
she
even
was
like the agency mini that Leslie does, like she has another agency mini coming up, and I find that that's a great, even if it's just a teaser for no pun intended, for all the different things that she offers in terms of helping people in the service industry, not just Pilates, but just to get a framework of what they're doing, how to do more of what they love, and not get kind of burdened by it. I took away so much from just the mini from the week alone that I was like, okay, I'm gonna run with that first, and then I'll circle back around.
right.
So yeah, so when that comes back up again, like maybe sign up for that and just tell let some people know because I think it's great to help do what we're doing right now in a more structured, intentional way and
Right.
capture those things and get those steps. So I think all of us are always learning, even if you have an established business, sometimes having outside eyes on it, much like your Pilates work, right? Like I'm sure you could throw down a great workout for yourself, but when you have another set of eyes on you, it feels different or it's a little more efficient or it has a different, something's different about it, right? So,
Yeah, and I think you know, like I would say with Ingrid, she, I'm like, you want me to do what? Like, I'm kind of thinking like,
mm,
it's like just, doing a backstroke on a tower with the springs.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, I feel that, right?
Yeah.
It's different
I want to
than
try that now.
we're on the box.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. My body's like, oh, that would feel really good. Maybe I should try that after the. I might
Yeah.
make a post about that.
Yeah.
Patricia, that just went so fast. How is it 10:58 already or 9:58 for you? That's
So
crazy.
Martin, I just wanted to say that I would love, you can do a giveaway. Um,
Yes.
so I have note cards, and
Oh,
I'm
cute.
send them to the people. And I'll make a donation to Grown Women Dance Collective, you know?
Oh,
They-
amazing.
yeah. Um,
Okay, so how do we? And we'll put it in the comment section so when people watch the replay, because I was gonna put it here, but it gets lost as
okay.
soon as you do it. So when we got a minute and 30 seconds before they shut me out here. So when we come off of here, and
Yeah.
then I put the post up, then put it in the comment section so people can know what the call to action is.
Okay. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
So great chatting with you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna do some research.
I really admire you and appreciate you. And I'm grateful for, you know, even when the conversations are not easy. And I loved Moon the other day. I thought,
Yes.
oh, you could just see her lit up, how she loved,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's so good. These conversations make me feel so alive. Like they're
Yeah, and
so
I
life-giving, you know?
think about the mentor mentee, that I'm not,
Yes.
it's not just teaching and it's one and done.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Life path. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
You
Thank
have
you
a
to
lovely
everyone.
day.
Yes, thank you to everyone who joined us as well.
Yeah, and I hope you
And
get sleep.
thank you. It's so good. Thank you again, Patricia. Take
Okay.
care.